For 10 agonizing years, a woman lived with an invisible, suffocating darkness. It wasn't a psychological breakdown. It wasn't a medical mystery. It was a literal, intelligent evil that had taken up residence in her body. But when the exorcist finally spoke about her case, the most terrifying revelation wasn't how the demon acted during the ritus. It was how it first got in. We live in an age that treats the demonic as a myth, a metaphor, or material for Hollywood horror films. We are conditioned to look for spinning heads, levitating furniture, and dramatic paranormal spectacles. But true spiritual warfare is rarely a sudden explosion. It is a slow, methodical erosion of the soul. The story of this woman's 10-year possession is not meant to entertain you. It is not a campfire tale designed to give you a temporary thrill. It is a mirror. Because the chilling reality uncovered by her exorcist strips away our modern illusions and forces us to confront a deeply uncomfortable truth. We are all engaged in an unseen battle. The enemy does not want to scare you. He wants to damn you. And the very same mechanics of spiritual compromise that led to her extraordinary possession are actively at work in the ordinary lives of millions of people right now. Perhaps even yours. We carry a dangerous misconception about how evil operates. We assume that spiritual ruin falls upon a person out of nowhere, like a lightning strike in a clear sky. But the exorcist involved in this grueling decade-long case revealed something fundamentally different. The possession did not begin with a dramatic demonic assault. It began with a quiet invitation. The entry point for this woman was not a satanic pact written in blood. It was a subtle compromise with the occult, a casual dabbling in New Age practices, tarot, and a simultaneous harboring of an unconfessed, deep-seated resentment. It seemed harmless to her. It felt like spirituality. But in the spiritual realm, there is no neutral ground. You are either operating under the lordship of Jesus Christ, or you are opening the door to the abyss. The psychological truth here is that human beings are masters of rationalizing small compromises. We tell ourselves that our little sins, our dabbling in things outside of God's grace, or our refusal to let go of a grudge, are just part of who we are. We fail to realize that we are negotiating with entities that have despised us since the dawn of creation. Examine your own daily habits. Are there doors you have left cracked open? Are there entertainment choices, spiritual curiosities, or secret habits that you know are contrary to the moral law of God? Close them today. The devil does not need to kick down the door of a soul that has already left the window open. As we look deeper into this case, we uncover an even darker mechanism, the architecture of how the enemy sustains his power once he is inside. For years, the exorcist prayed the solemn rites of the church over this woman. There were manifestations, violent reactions to holy water, and the undeniable presence of an ancient malice. But the demon would not leave. Why? The exorcist discovered that the woman was clinging to a profound, bitter hatred towards someone who had wounded her deeply in the past. Demons feed on our wounds, but they anchor themselves to our willful disobedience. As long as she refused to forgive, she was legally, in the spiritual sense, giving the demonic a right to remain. Her unforgiveness was the very chain that bound her to her tormentor. The psychological reality is that we often coddle our resentments, dressing them up as justice. We think our anger protects us from being hurt again. We stroke our grudges, completely blind to the fact that our refusal to forgive is rotting us from the inside out. We drink poison and wait for the other person to die. The application is terrifyingly clear. You must forgive. Not because the person who hurt you deserves it, but because your soul cannot survive the spiritual weight of hatred. Forgiveness is not an emotion. It is an act of the will. It is a command from Christ. Hatred is the dark sacrament of the enemy. It binds us to the very hell we think we are avoiding. But if God is all-powerful, Why did he allow this woman to suffer for 10 years? This brings us to the most profound mystery of the spiritual life. 10 years is a lifetime of suffering. Many who hear this story immediately ask, where was God? Why didn't he just speak a word and banish the demon on day one? The Exorcist explained that God, in his infinite and unsearchable wisdom, permitted this affliction for the purification of the woman's soul. Through the agonizing, prolonged battle, this woman was stripped of all her pride. She had to learn absolute dependence on Christ. She had to develop a grueling, daily discipline of prayer, fasting, and frequenting the sacraments. By the time she was finally liberated, she was not just free, Tao was holy. God used the demon as a chisel to sculpt a saint. Our psychological weakness is that we equate suffering with abandonment. The moment we face spiritual dryness, temptation, or relentless opposition, we assume God has turned his back on us. We demand immediate comfort and instant deliverance, forgetting that gold must be tried in the fire. When you are in the thick of a spiritual battle, when you are fighting that habitual sin, when your prayers feel like they are bouncing off a brass ceiling, do not retreat. Stay in the state of grace. Cling to the cross. The greatest triumph of the demonic is not to possess your body, but to convince you that God has abandoned your soul. This prolonged battle ultimately reveals where true power actually resides. When the liberation finally came, it was not because the exorcist was particularly charismatic, loud, or emotionally worked up. Deliverance does not come from human shouting. The demon was ultimately expelled through the quiet, unyielding authority of Jesus Christ, channeled through the obedience of his church. The priest simply stood in the person of Christ, using the authorized rituals, relying on the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary, who is a terror to demons. We live in an era of hyper-individualism. We think we can fight spiritual warfare on our own terms, with our own personalized spirituality. But the psychological trap of pride convinces us that we are strong enough to outsmart an angelic intellect that has existed since before time. We cannot. You must root yourself in the sacraments. Frequent confession is more powerful than an exorcism. Confession breaks the legal rights of the enemy over your soul. The Eucharist is the very presence of the victor. Hell does not tremble before human intellect. It trembles before divine obedience. You might be listening to this and thinking, well, this is a fascinating story, but I'm not possessed. I don't need an exorcist. Perhaps you don't. But let me ask you a much more dangerous question. Are you oppressed? Are you possessed by the things of this world? Are you bound by an addiction you swore you would quit years ago? Are you trapped in a cycle of mortal sin that you confess, only to return to it days later? Are you harboring a secret life that looks clean on the outside, but is spiritually rotting on the inside? The enemy doesn't need a full possession to destroy you. He is perfectly content with your apathy. He is perfectly satisfied if you just remain lukewarm, going to church on Sunday, but living like a pagan on Monday. The woman in this story fought a visible monster for 10 years. Many of us are walking willingly into the fire simply because the monster has convinced us he doesn't exist. But there is a way out. The darkness does not have the final word. The woman who suffered for a decade is now free, living a life of profound peace and grace. The chains were broken, and yours can be too. It requires a radical return to truth. It requires hitting your knees in genuine repentance. Look deeply at your conscience. If there is a mortal sin on your soul, do not sleep another night before resolving to get to the sacrament of confession. Break the ties. Throw out the things in your home that invite darkness. Forgive the person who shattered your heart. Give your life unconditionally and without reserve to Jesus Christ. Cultivate a devotion to the Blessed Mother, whose humility crushes the head of the serpent. The battle for your soul is raging at this very second. Every choice you make, every thought you entertain, Every sin you justify is either a step toward eternal light or eternal night. The enemy wants your soul. He hates you with a terrifying perfection. But Christ has already bought you with his own blood. He died so that you would not have to perish. The door to freedom is open, but you are the one who must walk through it. Time is short. Eternity is long. Choose your master. If this message convicted you, do not let this moment pass. Examine your conscience today. I invite you to subscribe to this channel as we continue to explore the deep, serious, and saving truths of the Christian faith. Leave a comment below with your thoughts. Iron sharpens iron. God bless you, and stay in the state of grace.